Hey all, here are OS Reviews. A few weeks back we checked out 1More's ColorBuds 2, which I liked a lot and I thought they were a pretty big improvement versus last year's model. Well, 1More continues with a refresh of its line, now with the ComfoBuds 2. As the name implies, this model is all about being more lightweight, ultra comfortable. And to achieve that, they've designed this more custom shape to the silicone tips, which are a little bit more flat than normal. It comes in two colors, black as well as white, and they sell for under $60, so these are also going to be a little bit cheaper than the ColorBuds, although they also are missing active noise cancellation. Otherwise, they do have a really large 13.4mm dynamic drivers. The average for wireless buds usually hovers around 5 to 6mm, so obviously with bigger drivers, it should pack in more sound, more bass. We'll talk about that more later on in this video, and it promises to have 12 EQ adjustments this time that have been tuned by Grammy award-winning sound engineer along with using SonarWorks software. It does include a low latency gaming mode, which is great to see, so it still supports the 1More companion app, and then battery life we're talking about up to 24 hours with the battery case, which is decent. It's comparable to the Apple AirPods. It's not going to be an endurance champion, but considering these are super small, I think that's fair. And they do also have a auto play and pause sensor, so when you remove them from your ears, they will automatically pause the music. Again, weighing in at less than 4.3 grams. 1More does also have another pair of buds in this ComfoBuds line called the ComfoBuds Pro, and that model does have active noise cancellation. And on the inside, we have just the buds themselves. Accessories include another set of spare silicone tips, which are much thinner, again, and smaller than regular ones. So there it is. We also have a USB Type-C charging cable, and finally there's the classic 1More sticker, as well as a pretty nicely presented documentation guide. First impressions of the battery case is it is indeed super small and ultra lightweight. Here it is next to a standard US quarter just for reference. Also, here it is next to the previous ColorBuds 2 that we saw from before. So these are going to be a little bit thicker. Apple AirPods, you can also get an idea there. So these are definitely really easy just to slide into any pocket. There's also a status LED light that will turn on to tell you the status of the juice that's approximately left using different colors. And then on the back, we do have a logo etched into the hinge, which is 1More, Hear More, and also the Type-C port for charging is accented in red. Have a pretty unassuming look to them, although one other detail that I appreciate is actually on the bottom of the stem, there are LED lights. So especially in darker environments, it actually looks very cool as it's charging and giving you that status. And even the fonts that they're using is a little bit funky looking. The buds themselves just also have a very streamlined design that continues with the theme of some red accents peeking through on some of the grills, and there is the autoplay and pause ambient sensor located on the side, and then we can also make out that even the drivers have this accented red on the mesh, and just really how thin, again, these silicone tips are just because of this design that they're going for, just to make them more lightweight and compact. It is a kind of hard mesh. The touch sensitive region is actually slightly below the 1More logo here. So this is the part that you have to tap on to do things like play and pause and skip tracks. I will say that I would have preferred if maybe the touch points could have been a little bit higher up. That would have felt perhaps a little bit more ergonomic, but for what it is, it works fine. As far as the wearing experience is concerned, they are indeed super comfortable and ultra lightweight, applying virtually no pressure at all. When you're popping them in, it almost feels invisible, which is great. However, one slight consequence of having such a super slim silicone tip is it's also going to feel a little bit looser at times, and you do need to sometimes kind of press it in a little bit more so that you get the best seal, since with any smaller buds in general, seal is super important when it comes to bass and the sound quality. So the companion app here is from 1More, the same that we've seen on their other buds, and over here we can check out things like the battery percentage remaining on the left, the right side, as well as the case. Pretty simple stuff, and we can also turn on or off the auto play and pause function. Custom settings again allow us to change the controls, so double tapping or triple tapping are the two commands that we have. Right now they're assigned to play, pause, and the voice assistant, but you can also change that to do something like changing the volume higher or lower, although it would be nice to have maybe a third command that you can customize. Overall, it still is easy to use, and there's also the low latency PC gaming mode, which you can flick on or off if you're doing things like watching back a video or requiring faster frame rate between the action and the sound. With that being said, if you turn it off, the sound quality can be a little bit higher in terms of the pure quality, since it can pass through more data, but that will also increase the latency a little bit. Finally, you can take a look at any equalizers, and by default, again, there are 12 of these built on in. Even though they've collaborated with SonarWorks, if you guys recall, we've checked out a few buds now that have made this collaboration. Some of the other ones we've seen, though, has given you the ability to fine-tune even your own EQ via a hearing test. However, this time around, it doesn't give you that level of granularity. You have just a default mode, which already sounds great. We'll talk about that more later on, as well as other effects like a bass reducing, bass boosting, acoustic, classical, podcast, hip-hop, lounge pop, vocal boosting. They can all be found. And they do make a pretty dramatic difference on here. It's not subtle at all. So each of the modes is very different from one another in terms of the effect. You can also take a look at soothing sounds, which is carried over from the color buds that we saw. This basically will play back nature sounds and white noises to help you relax, meditate, or even fall asleep. So you get a handful here including rain sounds, and then other ones here including fire, drizzle, spring water, field, forest. It just goes on and on. A really huge selection and a nice little built-in function there. Finally, you can see if there's any firmware updates to push over. Also, if you tap on the 1More logo, you can also activate the aforementioned smart burn-in, which has been something that has been available for all of 1More's products. The theory, at least with audio enthusiasts, is after a speaker or driver has a certain amount of time to play back sounds and loosen up, it actually sounds even better. Leave it playing back for a few hours or overnight, and then see if it will slightly improve the sound. The legacy 1More app that you can also download separately also contains a custom equalizer if you don't want to rely on those 12 presets, so you can tune these frequencies and segments yourself. Moving into audio quality and performance, there's plenty to like here, including the fact that they are super clean. So you won't hear any hints of static, no hissing, no distortion or white noise in the background at all, even when you are playing and pausing the music really quickly. So very good job there in terms of the overall transmission and the chipset that they've using, even though they aren't going to support Qualcomm's aptX as well as LDAC. Also, the bigger drivers do make a difference in terms of they have plenty of bass, especially for buds that are so thin in terms of that silicone tip. And overall, if you're listening to a drum beat or EDM music, it sounds pretty punchy and satisfying, especially if you're trying the bass boosted mode in the EQ presets. That effect just really turns it up a notch. In fact, I personally even found it to be a little bit too much, but bass heads will definitely appreciate it. At the same time, you can still detect a lot of details and mids as well as trebles. Things like vocals and instrumentals do still sound quite good. Definitely is good quality for the sound. 1More is definitely known for that, so it's good to see them still continue the legacy of packing impressive audio out of a pair of buds that is relatively low cost and just really lightweight. If there are any weaknesses though, I would say compared to models that do have a triple driver, such as their piston buds and a few of the other more expensive models from their lineup, maybe the trebles could still have a little bit more refinement and detail, but that's being pretty nitpicky. And definitely use these to watch videos, whether it's YouTube or Netflix. You won't find a problem here. So that's more or less it as far as our hands-on review of the 1More ComfoBuds 2. Again, compared to last year's model, it still has a very similar design overall, but it just improves in terms of the battery life being a little bit longer, which is great, as well as those additional EQs that is now available via the companion app, which is a nice touch. So if all you need is something simple, this is going to be worth a closer look. You can check out more details if you're interested. For now, that's been our video. Thanks for watching here at OS Reviews. That's been the 1More ComfoBuds 2.